Thanks for tuning in to the Agape Learning Tools podcast. I'm Janae.
And I'm John.
And we're your educators for every episode, bringing powerful perspective insights from the classroom, tools for educators, and more.
Before we get started, be sure to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss any of the great stories and advice we'll be sharing.
Now that you've got that taken care of, grab a seat and join us in the classroom.
Welcome to Agape Educational News, AE News on YouTube. Insightful and innovative news and ideas regarding learning is our mission. I am John Boyd.
And I'm Janae McKnight, and we are your educational guides. We are speaking to you today about the topic of the benefits of diversity in our learning communities. And so the first thing that we want to do is we want to just kind of share a little bit with you of some statistics from the perspectives of where we are going to be speaking from. And so the National Center for Education Statistics put out a report in the fall of 2018. And there are 50.7 million students that are in the public education school system in the United States of America. Of those 50.7 million, 46% of those students are white, 27% of those students are Hispanic, 15% of them are Black, and 5% are Asian. Now, on the flip side of that, because we're speaking to you about educators, on the flip side of that, in public education, there are 79% white, non-Hispanic educators. There are 9%. Now, watch the drop from 79% to 9% Hispanic educators, 7% Black educators, and 2% Asian. Wow. So when you hear those statistics, let's have the conversation. So let's talk about how important it is in our learning communities, within our schools, for our students of all different races to see people that look like them, that think like them to a certain degree, that have a cultural diverse background like them. And so what is it that we want educators and leaders to know about the importance of this in our schools and in our communities is what we're going to just be having this candid conversation about. So one of our first points is about having students having a more open and diverse perspective when they have other educators of different cultures in their building. So as leaders, educational leaders, the focus is, and again, we talked about this, that it's not just about hiring teachers that are of diverse staff, but even if it's where you're bringing in people on a regular basis, whether you are having parents involved that are of different cultures, what are our students drawing or learning from that? You know, when they have someone come in, let's say if you're in a rural area and you have what is considered as a predominantly one culture community in the school. Well, once you bring someone from a different culture in, the umbrella opens, because now I realize that the whole world doesn't look just like what I saw and what I have been seeing all of my life, that now I have a bigger perspective of what is actually out there for me as a student. So what do you have to say about that?
Well, I have a couple of things to say about, your point, your points. For one, I think it's very important for us to make sure that we consider, well, like you said, the rural community. I live in a rural community and I do have pretty much one perspective, but it's very important for the educators. And it, like we've talked before, we've talked about the education, the leadership. A lot of times the leadership in the building, if you see a successful school, whether it's diverse or whether it's one perspective, it's because the leadership has the pulse of that building and that community. Okay, and they're working together, and the teachers are working together. So it's very important for the leadership to have an opinion that is taking us to higher heights.
Yeah.
And what I mean by higher heights is your one perspective is great for your one community. But isn't it our interest to see our students excel out in the world, to see them learn and equip them with the things that they need to be successful, not just in our environment. That's us. In our environment, we definitely want to know what has gotten people successful and things like that. But we need to broaden our horizon, and that could be, maybe I can't hire, an African American teacher or a Latino teacher or an Asian teacher or a German teacher to come into my rural community, but as the educational leader, as a teacher, I can definitely expose my community and my students to the diversity that is present in the world today. And that is where I think a lot of people need to understand. It's a reason 79% of the teachers in public schools are white. It's a reason why we only we only have 7% African American, only 9% Hispanic, and only 2% Asian. There's so many other things that we can talk about, but more importantly, your first point about perspective and having just one perspective, that is the mentality. And it's interesting because when you do your methods classes in your educational school, this is where the heartbeat of our students, the heartbeat of student teachers, of teachers, it starts very early in their career. So those are things that needs to be discussed. But right now, it's you can throw you to the wolves and figure it out. And I think more people are missing the impact that we have on equipping our students with more than one perspective.
Exactly. And yes, like you said, it's many different factors and reasons why these are the statistics. We can go on and on about the reasons why certain different races are not pursuing a degree in education or pursuing to be teachers. We could talk about that because that's a whole nother podcast actually. But like we were saying, is that our students, because I just think and reflect a little bit even on my upbringing, I was exposed to some teachers that were of different races, but I wasn't so much as exposed to different races of students, which it was kind of a flip for me because basically it was a predominantly African-American school in our community. But what's interesting is when you go to college, this is where you end up running into that big diversity. You run into, diverse instructors, professors, as well as students, and you have to learn how to function as the minority student, and even from the perspective of having, your people that look like you as the minorities and the educators, so you have to adapt to that, but it shouldn't have to be where you have to adapt to that alone once you get into college. It should happen a lot earlier. So going back to the example we talked about in a rural school, how are some ways that educators can bring that diverse instruction? Well, nowadays there's everything on YouTube, there's everything online. And so purposefully and intentionally go and look for educators that are of different cultures, different races. Teach students, that this is what the real world looks like, even though this is how our community looks like. And sometimes we have to, even as educators, get out of our comfort zone of what we're comfortable with, and say, oh, this is how it should be in this classroom. And, students should sit still and they should do this. And, and this is greater and that, and sometimes we are used to from our own upbringing. But as an educator for today, we must get out of our comfort zone, be open to be uncomfortable in different conversations, go seek out people of other races. Go and find people to actually be friends with. One of the hard discussions we had earlier last year when we came back in from the pandemic with our staff was about, how many of us actually, and not just, oh, that's my friend at work, or that's my friend when I go to church, but how many of us actually hang out, go places, talk about our kids? How many of us have that relationship with people of different races and different cultures? That's what being a real friend is. Just like if you had a friend that was your same race, do you have that with other people where you talk on the phone, you eat together, your families get together? That's what that looks like. And that's what our children and our students, that's what it's going to look like for them.
Yes.
And so that's what we want to model for them in that aspect. Did you have anything else on that?
Yeah, I definitely want to talk, because we're discussing the benefits of diversity. So you brought up a huge point about, what does your friend pool look like?
Yeah.
But what if I'm, again, we are all, and you'll hear me say this a lot of times with the copy. We're all products of our environment. If I'm a teacher in a predominantly urban school district, and the majority of my students are predominantly African American children of color, then I'm going to, probably have sort of an advantage. I am a resource. I am a resource for my learning community. But can I do that same thing if I go into a rural school district, or if I go to a school district where, the level of diversity is not the same as an urban school? Those things are very important. And how do I reach, other students that don't look like me? Well, again, I was mentored by an amazing group of people, and I was mentored by, a mother who saw the world differently because she viewed the world differently. And the one thing that's universal is love and caring. And so no matter what environment you go, and again, you're gonna, because I'm this skin color, because my friends are another skin color, it's always easy. What do they say? I don't even like saying it, but they always say the race card. Oh, you don't like me because I'm Black, you're white, you're racist. Society, the media has created such conflict, between people. And we're forgetting, again, that we are not limited to one perspective. We used to have great conversations. Like, I can recall great conversations. They used to teach, African American history. That was a time, the month of February. I feel like you should teach the history of the United States all the time, because it's very important to have a foundation.
Yes.
Because if you teach the history of the United States, then there's no way you can have one perspective, because our history has taken so many significant turns. But because we don't focus on history anymore, we focus on, social media and things like this, it is hurting, the minds of our children.
Yeah.
There are so many agendas. And I'm going to be honest, if I'm a rural mom or dad, it's a reason why, let's just be honest, it's a reason why I moved, or I've been out here. I'm a farmer, I'm living off the land, or whatever the case may be. If I'm in an urban school, there's a reason my parents moved to an urban school district. My perspective is going to be the perspective of the educational leaders that are in charge in that school district. That is a key point. The educational and who is providing the scope of which way our education. there's no oversight in education anymore. There used to be tons of parents who came to school board meetings. You couldn't continue to run a school district, and it'd be an F school district for 3 years, let alone 10 years. So those types of things, when we talk about diversity goes beyond, just a white teacher in a black teacher in a white environment, where a predominantly white, an Asian teacher in a black environment. I think when you decide to become an educator, and that doesn't matter if you're on the admin side, because again, conflict. People in this day and age, they think because you're a principal that you've never been a teacher. They look at you different. Oh, you're on the, so again, we should be unified when we teach our students. We should be unified in our mission, because honestly, it's not even about us.
Right.
We go into a job where it's completely about the child.
Exactly. And that's a whole nother podcast as well, because we really need to talk about that, about what exactly is the focus in our education systems right now, in our schools.
Yes.
One of the things that I really, really like that you kind of brought up is, yes, let's keep the open mind and open perspective that it is not just about a black or white thing. It is really about even teachers that are exposed to different things. So like if you have a teacher that speaks French, that speaks German, and they come and they speak with their class, imagine what they can add on to the education of their topic or their subject matter in their classroom. So, you have teachers, they may have a different class perspective. And as long as you're not lording that class, like, maybe you are wealthy and you decided, hey, I have a heart for students. I want to come into the inner city and I want to teach. That's great. As long as you're not using it in a negative way or, making students feel less than. But a lot of times, sometimes you have people, they're very wealthy and they still choose to stay inside of inner city youth schools so that they can teach our inner city youth how they can get to those places. So again, those are some of your, really good teachers that really make a difference in students' lives, but they don't put their level of wealth out there to make anyone feel less than. And that's very key. The second point that we want to kind of move along to is about that students are exposed to a school that reflects the real world. So let's talk about what the real world looks like, especially now, because we're recording this in 2021. It's a year after we have just went through a global pandemic, and students and schools are different. Well, schools have to be different for the different students that we teach. The world right now is about, a lot of it is about social media. It's about our students now can speak and communicate with students all over the world in a snap of a finger, in the push of a button. That's it. That's the world we live in now, where I remember years ago, we would have pen pals in other countries and you had to write a letter and have it mailed, and it would take weeks for it to get there and then weeks for you to, respond back or get it back. But now it's at the touch of a finger that our students and pretty much students, anything they want to know, what do? They Google it.
Yes.
And so we have all of this, but the thing is that are we getting them socially? Because even though they can speak to people, what is their perspective? How are they speaking to them?
And it's I gotta just cut in real quick, because when you said that, I understand technology and I understand, but it's something to be said when you create the foundation. The foundation, that's what we have stopped, the foundation of education, because we've put a computer in every student's hand. This is what's incredible, and this is why I love agape, because we want to get back to the roots. The tree represents the roots. The hearts represent love. And it's very important for us when we talk about our students and give them their foundation that we understand that writing, We've taken away that. We've given a kid a computer, but do they have to go and take a class to make them understand computing or how to use this device efficiently? Or is it like a one-stop shop for all? To me, Chromebooks, iPads, one-stop shop. If you throw a kid an iPad, honestly, an iPad and a Chromebook can do so much. Are we exploring what a Chromebook can do? No, we're just, you got to go to your Google Classroom, Schoology, all of these, these different programs to get your work, but we're not even checking to see if students really understand. We're not doing that. So again, when I talk about this, how it reflects the real world, we have leadership that have unrealistic goals with our students. I mean, this is what we have to discuss. We have to have these courageous discussions because we got to get back to finding out how we fix some things. And again, it's going to benefit our students, and again, it's not as easy as a click of a button. You give me a computer, but I don't know grammar. I don't know proper punctuation. I'm typing on my computer, but I'm not putting pauses. I'm not putting commas in. I'm not using quotation marks the correct way. I don't know what a declarative sentence is, an interrogative sentence is. I'm not doing any of those. And then I'm being skipped by. This is there are students that are succeeding, and that's what I'm saying. It really, I have to talk about this, because you talk about the benefits of diversity in our learning communities. When I think about diversity, I think about the diversity of our world. I am personally sick and tired of people making excuses for something that is very simple, to me. You sit down with the community of your school district, and again, parents are not becoming involved with their students' education. They're just saying, hey, it's his job. Teachers are saying, hey, that's not my job. That's the administrator's job. And so we all walk out of here pointing the finger at somebody else.
Oh, that's good.
We're not pointing the finger at this kid who's sitting here wanting to have dreams, and we're in charge of their dreams. We are in charge of their dreams along with their parents, and their parents send us to kind of help them to attain their dreams. But instead, bad kid, kick that kid out.
That's good.
Don't help that kid. Again, our diversity is being removed. There's a reason why there's a reason why these things need to occur, and there's a reason why we're talking about them.
Yeah. And that's really good that you said that. And you know what, I can say, guilty, been there, done that. Students, they frustrate you, things happen, you try to talk it out with the parents. But I think just even over the years in education and growing in education, you do learn to be more compassionate towards students and what they're going through, because the student that's angry, that said something, it's to the point where now a teacher being cussed out is like almost an expected thing. Wherein, of course, back in the day, that wasn't acceptable. And I think that's the thing. We keep hearing that and even saying that, but these are not back in the day students.
No.
They are just as different now as we are different, because think about it. Back in the day, we had a phone that could reach from the wall all the way across the room with a cord. Now your phone is in your hand, in your purse, everywhere you go. And so again, everything is different. So we have to stop saying how it was. Now, Does that mean throw the baby out with the bathwater? No. There are some things and some methods of teaching that were effective that are still effective. One experiment that a school did is they did a whole summer school without any technology. The students grew by leaps and bounds just in that short amount of time, getting rid of the distractions.
Mhm.
So if we did study further in that, it's something to it. So a lot of things that have been thrown out the window said, oh, that's not best practice. I think we should do more research on that. You
Can I
know,
jump in real
yeah,
quick?
go ahead.
I'm going to say, I want to know, please email us, but tell me why there is no typing. Why nobody learns how to type. Indiana, by the way, we literally stopped teaching our kids how to write in cursive for a period of time.
Mhm.
For what I have known, so anybody can mimic or fraudulently take your signature now because you're writing in manuscript, which is very simple
Mhm.
for you to
Yeah,
forge.
exactly.
So many things that are going on. But I just wanted to say that
Mhm.
why are some kids that you hand them a computer? This is a skill.
Mhm.
I'm sitting next to my sister who was our city's typing champion. She could type over 100 something words
Mhm.
a minute. Amazing, and that was a class that everybody in our community took,
Mhm.
typing 1 and 2. You had to learn how to type. Now we hand students, this is crazy. We didn't have computers. We had typewriters to
Mhm.
write papers.
Right.
Now you have this device, a computer, where it's so important for you to be able to type,
Right.
but we don't teach it.
Right.
We don't even look at it that is something a skill that
Right.
needs to be learned. No, the people that know how to put their fingers on the keyboard the correct way will advance and be able to finish their work
Mhm.
much faster.
Right.
The students who have to peck because they haven't been taught how to type will suffer.
Right.
And their work will be turned in late. There are so many things that we need to discuss. And it's very important, that's why we decided we need to get out here,
And
start talking
Yep.
and having courageous discussions and conversations.
That's right. Because even taking that just one step further, and I'm gonna move to the next point, is they have to take the state tests by computer now. And then even when you go to school to become an educator, they actually give you the test. And if it's still the way it was when I took my last test, it's time. So if I'm a packer, if I don't know the keyboard and I don't know how to type, I might fail my test, not because I don't have the knowledge to pass the test, but because I'm not fast enough in keyboarding. So just look at some of those types of things, that it could affect the student all the way up. All right, what you got?
We're setting our students up for failure.
Absolutely.
But we want to pass that test, but we continue to set them up for failure.
And the question I have about that is, how can you, like you said, how can you continuously be a district or a school that is a failure for 10, 15, 20 years and produce students that are consistently failing and not expect to have a chaotic world, not expect to have chaotic communities, continuously the same thing, continuously stand in poverty, continuously stand. You get that one or two that actually do something and actually grow or thrive, but the majority are still staying in the vicious cycle because they have been set up for failure. But like I said, that's a whole nother podcast. Okay, let's talk about this third topic. Students learn to value other cultures and broaden their world.
So when I decided to move around in my educational journey and go to another school district from my urban school district that I truly love, I saw how important it was for me to just get in my car. And once I knew that I was hired, to drive around that community and literally engage with the public and go to little events that they had around town and find out about what is important to them. And it was amazing, to see, how it connected me with kids, to make sure that I, that I was connected to them,
Mhm.
in the classroom,
Mhm.
when students have a recital,
Mhm.
as a teacher, going to that, that them asking you, hey, Mr. Boyd, are you gonna come to my recital? Sure am. Just going in there. I don't have to stay the entire recital, but
Yeah.
connecting with that parent
Mhm.
and that child and seeing them, hey, he's an advocate for me.
Mhm.
Hey, she's an advocate for me.
Right.
Those type of things are very important to children.
Right.
They remember things much longer than adults.
Mhm.
Adults,
Mhm.
some parents, some educators, they can be very messy, and I'm going to say that out loud, been there, done that, but
Mhm.
obviously everything is about learning,
Right.
and when you said we value other cultures,
Mhm.
driving in that car and going to another environment,
Mhm.
a culture is just not the Asian culture, the African American culture, the Polish culture. It's the culture of an entire city.
Yeah.
It's the culture of a learning
Mhm.
community.
Mhm.
It's the culture of the way leaders, conduct themselves.
Right.
The culture of holding people accountable.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
the culture of am I in an environment where wrong is right,
Right.
where people are constantly doing
Mhm.
wrong, but people look the other way and say, oh, that's right. And then I
Mhm.
have to, my values have to be compromised,
Mhm.
in this environment.
Mhm.
So when you say, we need to have our students learn to value other cultures and broaden their world.
Mhm.
Again, that's why it's so important to expose field trips,
Right. Right.
walks,
Mhm.
where we let them discuss.
Yes.
There's a program that they have now called Crew. It's really, you just talking to your students and
Mhm.
building a relationship. It's amazing that you have to create a program for something that used to be
The norm.
the norm.
Mhm. Yeah.
The norm.
Yes, exactly. And I think about, like in that, like helping them to value other cultures. The first step to that is, like we said earlier, is exposing them to other cultures. So if you have students that are in I'm going to flip it from, because, this is what we do in the urban community, but in the rural community, put those students on a bus and take them to the inner city. Take them to programs inside the inner city so that they can be exposed, and not to point the finger and say, oh, see, look at how bad that is. This is why, we have it. No, but to show them that, look at this world that we live in. There's some beautiful people out here. And yes, in every race, you have people that make wrong choices. And maybe you might make some wrong choices. But the thing is that we still have a very wonderful world. And that is why we are called the United States, because we have that advantage of having this melting pot, this culturally diverse nation that we have. So we want to teach our students to value them. When you are in a school and maybe you're that one student that's of a different race, whatever that may be. You may be the only German student. Maybe you're the only Indian student in that school. So guess what? As we kind of talked about earlier, that leader's responsibility is for them to make sure that they have made the correct adaptation. And I know educators, this is what we're famous for. Oh, well, it's just one kid. And that one child should feel just as accepted, just as welcome, even if you do a whole Asian American celebration just for that one student. It's worth it, because of the fact that that student is a part of your community now. And you know what that does? It welcomes and opens the door to others that are not like the majority in your school. And so the thing is that what we want to start doing is we want to make sure that we are allowing our students to learn to value other cultures, teaching them how to respect one another despite their race, despite their class, despite the things that they were not exposed to, whether they were in poverty or whether they're wealthy, but to still respect one another despite that. And then that's how we broaden their world. I remember when I used to teach 8th grade, I remember at that time, I would take my students we would just go and we would go to different neighborhoods. Like on our way back from a field trip, we would go through different neighborhoods so that they could be exposed to see what other areas look like despite where they had grown up all their lives. When we went to Chicago one time to take our students to go see a stage play, probably 90% of them had never been to Chicago, which is literally like 30 to 40 minutes away from where they live. They had never been to the big city. And so this is what we want to start doing. I know we've been where, where we can't take the kids on field trips, but now there's virtual trips. Take your kids to an art museum, an art gallery virtually. Take your kids to an aquarium virtually. However you have to do it to make it work right now, take small groups and then take another small group. But this is the thing, and we have to start showing our students that the world is so much bigger than just every day coming to school, doing the same thing. So every week you should have a field trip planned for your students. And that means so those days when teachers are like the day before holidays, and we all know this, teachers want to show that educational video. Okay, let that educational video be something to discuss with your students. Show them something they've never seen before. And if you have to talk to other people to find that, do your research and expose your students to those different areas that they need to be exposed to.
So as we wrap up this conversation, we have some points. So diversity in your community equals better equipped leaders, better equipped students,
yes,
better equipped teachers, and a better equipped learning community. This is AE News on YouTube. Insightful and innovative news and ideas regarding learning is our mission.
So thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Agape Educational News. And we will be back with more topics just like this one. And I am Janae McKnight.
And I am John Boyd.
And I want you guys to go to our YouTube channel, Agape Learning Tools. And I also want you guys, if you need to contact us, whether you want to contact us as a speaker or you want to contact us for any other reason, for consulting, for coaching, go to our website at agapelearningtools.com, or you can email us at info@agapelearningtools.com. Our number is 219-359-2808, and we look forward to seeing you on next time.
Thank you for listening.
So thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Agape Educational News. And we will be back with more topics just like this one.
And connect with us on social media at Agape Learning Tools on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok.
If this episode helped you, share it with a friend. Our goal is to empower educators to excel in their work, and every new listener matters. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you next time.